Welcome to our channel. Before we get started, please consider liking and subscribing so we can bring more stories like this to you.
The train's interior was a scene of chaos as the terrorists took control, their presence suffocating and overwhelming. The once bustling Tokyo Express, known for its speed and efficiency, transformed into a metal cage hurtling toward catastrophe. Clad in dark clothing, the assailants shouted commands, forcing passengers into submission. Fear gripped the hearts of those on board as they witnessed the malicious intent behind their captors' actions. Amid this turmoil sat Jason Statham's character, seasoned operative marked by his steely resolve, handcuffed to a terrified backpacker. He scanned the crowded compartment, noting every detail, the glint of weapons in the terrorists' hands, the panicked faces around him, and most critically, the ticking timer attached to a detonator resting ominously on the dashboard. The countdown had begun as adrenaline surged through him. He sensed that every second counted, that it wasn't just his life that lay in jeopardy. Thousands outside were blissfully unaware of the impending doom. The train was rigged with deadly sarin gas, a nerve agent capable of devastating effects if released. In this moment of despair and uncertainty, Jason knew he had to act swiftly and decisively. The stakes were alarmingly high. Time was slipping away like sand through his fingers. Determination sparkled in his eyes as he formulated a plan to turn this nightmarish scenario around. A plan that would require not only strength but sheer grit as well. Jason Statham's character, known for his sharp instincts and resilience, surveyed the scene with unwavering focus. An ex-special forces operative. He had trained for crises far worse than this, but knowing that the lives of innocent passengers depended on him intensified the weight of the situation as he sat there, handcuffed to a wide-eyed backpacker who clutched his hiking gear as if it were a lifeline. Jason felt a familiar surge of determination coursing through him. The young man beside him trembled visibly, his anxiety palpable in the cramped cabin. With each erratic lurch of the train, Jason could see the backpacker fighting back tears, desperate to understand how their day had spiraled into this nightmare. A quick glance at the terrified passengers around them filled him with resolve. Helplessness was not an option. In his mind, Jason meticulously assessed their predicament. The deafening shouts from the terrorists filled the air, but his attention fixed on potential escape routes and equipment he might use. He knew that staying calm was crucial. Panic would only exacerbate their perilous situation as fear threatened to grip him too. He reminded himself that he was not just fighting for his own life but for everyone aboard. The countdown was ticking down ominously, and with it came an urgency that propelled him to think beyond mere survival, to finding a way to take control of this runaway disaster before it was too late. Panic surged through the cabin as the train hurtled forward, the relentless acceleration leaving passengers grasping for stability. A cacophony of terrified screams filled the air, blending with the ominous whir of the speeding locomotive. Faces drained of color reflected sheer terror. People clutched each other, desperately seeking comfort in the face of impending doom. The reality began to sink in. This was no ordinary train journey. They were trapped on a ticking time bomb. The coach swayed violently as it rounded corners, sending some passengers tumbling to the floor. Mother clutched her child tightly, eyes wide with fear as she whispered reassurances that her voice struggled to convey. Nearby, a businessman frantically dialed his phone, his hands shaking as he tried to connect with the outside world, only to be met with dead silence. A stark reminder of their isolation, adrenaline coursed through Jason's veins. He could feel the desperation mounting among those around him. People were starting to lose hope, their pleas for help mingling with sobs and gasps. Time was slipping away, and every second felt like an eternity. Amidst this rising tide of chaos, Jason's resolve solidified. He knew that clarity and action were essential in preventing catastrophe. He had to rally not just himself but also those around him if there was any chance of survival against this deadly threat. In the midst of the chaos, Jason's mind raced as he assessed his options. The metallic clink of his handcuffs echoed in his ears, a persistent reminder that time was slipping away. He glanced out the window, watching the scenery blur by at breakneck speed, and suddenly inspiration struck. He could use the very environment around him to escape. His heart pounded as he focused on a passing signal post rapidly approaching outside the train. With adrenaline surging, he was filled with steadfast determination. He had to unlock himself if there was any hope for survival. Summoning every ounce of strength, Jason maneuvered himself away from his frightened companion and towards the window. His hands worked tirelessly against the cold metal cuffs that bound him. Timing was crucial as they neared the signal post. Jason braced himself, aligning his cuffed wrists strategically alongside it in a split second. He applied pressure as they sped past, feeling the harsh impact that sent jolts through his body. With a sudden snap, one cuff broke apart, freeing his right hand, and he wasted no time adjusting his grip to unwrap himself completely. Now partially free and fueled by urgency, Jason turned back toward the compartment with renewed resolve. He knew this was only the beginning. Overcoming their perilous situation required more than just escape. It would demand quick action and quick thinking to avert certain disaster for all aboard. With one hand now free, Jason took a deep breath, steeling himself for the next critical step. He swung his legs out of the train, the rush of wind hitting his face like a cold slap as he found himself precariously positioned outside the speeding engine. The ground below blurred into a streak of colors while the train sliced through the landscape at an astonishing 320 km/h. Adrenaline surged through his veins. This was not just an escape. It was a race against time. Balancing on the narrow ledge of the train, he instinctively steadied himself, gripping the metal frame with all his strength. Each jolt of the train sent waves of tension through his body, but he pushed past the instinct to panic. Below him, the tracks flashed by in a dizzying array, and he felt his heart race even faster than the train itself. The urgency of the ticking countdown echoed in his mind as he crawled along the side. Determined to reach a point where he could make a difference, he focused on breathing steadily, blocking out everything but the goal ahead. With each movement, Jason shifted his weight carefully, using his training to navigate this dangerous escape route. The wind howled around him, but he pressed on. He had to purge that deadly gas. The lives of everyone aboard depended on his next move, and there was no turning back now as Jason steadied himself on the train's ledge. He could see the canisters of sarin gas precariously positioned on the roof just ahead. The horrifying reality of what they contained weighed heavily on his mind. This was a deadly chemical weapon that could kill thousands if released. He knew he had to act fast and ingeniously to mitigate the disaster unfolding beneath him. In that fateful moment, he devised a daring plan. The gas needed to be vented safely without spreading chaos throughout the cabin. He took a deep breath, battling the swirling winds around him as he formulated a feasible approach. With his remaining cuff still attached to a stubborn restraint, every second counted. He reached for the canister, applying pressure to its release valve while bracing himself against the tumultuous speed of the train. Using his body as leverage, Jason pushed against the edge of the roof. The gas hissed out violently, and he directed it away from the train's exhaust system, aiming to vent it into thin air where it would dissipate rapidly rather than suffocate everyone on board. It was a risky maneuver, fraught with uncertainty. Any miscalculation could turn him into a casualty rather than a hero. Despite the danger looming around him, Jason felt a profound sense of purpose as the gas escaped harmlessly into the atmosphere. His actions combined courage with an innovative instinct for survival, embodying the very essence of heroism amidst overwhelming odds. With the sarin gas successfully vented, Jason knew the battle was far from over. Adrenaline surged as the train barreled down the tracks, and he could feel the impending crash looming closer with each passing second. The countdown timer visible through the cabin window ticked ominously, starkly emphasizing the urgency of his situation. He needed to stabilize the train and protect the passengers before it was too late. Gripping tightly to the train's edge, Jason reached for his radio, praying it still functioned. Static crackled in his ear as he attempted to contact local authorities. "This is an emergency. I need you to stop the train," he shouted. His voice strained against the wind. Brief moments of panic coursed through him as he envisioned the devastation that would ensue if he failed. While listening for a response, Jason scanned the landscape for signs of potential intervention. He noticed a communications tower in the distance, its blinking alert lights promising help if he could just bring it to their attention. He urgently relayed details about their trajectory and the countdown to any responders who could hear him, all while managing the delicate balance of maintaining his grip as time slipped away like grains of sand. Every breath felt heavier than the last. The faint sound of sirens grew closer, igniting a spark of hope within him. Yet, He knew he had mere moments to avert disaster, not just from the train but from the volatile chemical contained within it. The weight of responsibility pressed hard on his shoulders as he prepared for whatever action lay ahead. As the sirens blared closer, Jason's resolve solidified. He couldn't let this moment escape him. In a final push, he maneuvered back toward the cabin while coordinating with the local authorities over the radio. Their voices crackled through just in time, offering instructions on how to activate the emergency brakes from his position. With every ounce of strength, he followed their guidance, his heart pounding in synchrony with the countdown timer's menacing beeps. As the train hurtled toward a vital junction, Jason pressed the emergency brake lever, feeling the shudder of the train respond beneath him. The brakes screamed against metal, and he braced himself for the impact. Passengers held their breath, fear mingling with hope as they felt the train slow. Finally, with a bone-rattling jolt, it came to a halt mere meters from a catastrophe. A wave of relief washed over him as he turned to see the gas canisters safely contained. No longer a threat, cheers erupted from within the cabin as passengers began to realize they were safe. Jason stood on the ledge, surveying the scene below. He had done it. He had not only saved lives but faced his own fears head-on. And that triumphant moment, Jason reflected on what it meant to be a hero. It wasn't just about courage in the face of danger, but about making split-second decisions that could change countless lives. As he finally climbed back inside to embrace his fellow passengers, he felt an indescribable mix of pride and humility, knowing that true heroism often emerges in the most dire of circumstances.